The tone around Berea changed on day 11, and it changed because of one simple shift on the practice schedule. Shedeur Sanders finally got his turn with the starters, and instead of looking like a guy who needed time to catch up, he looked like a guy who had been waiting for exactly this chance the whole time. For days, every conversation about this Browns quarterback competition kept circling back to the same thing. Reps. Who was getting the first team snaps? Who was throwing against the better defensive look? Who was getting real chances to win the job instead of just occupying a rotation slot? Deshaun Watson had been stacking extended runs with the ones, and every time Cleveland handed him another day, the questions about whether this was actually an open competition got louder. Shedeur needed a moment where the story stopped being about opportunity and started being about production. On day 11, he got that moment, and he took it. What jumped out immediately was how settled he looked. No hesitation. No feeling out period where the offense needed a handful of reps to find its rhythm. He walked in playing fast, letting the ball go with conviction, attacking throwing windows like someone who understood exactly what this rep meant for him. That matters more than people realize, because first-team reps are a different animal. The timing tightens, the defensive speed jumps, every mistake gets magnified. Most young quarterbacks slow down the first time they step into that group. Shedeur sped up. Todd Monken laid out exactly how this happened, and honestly, it says a lot about how he runs his quarterback room. He explained that Shedeur had already taken the ones through a walkthrough, so he expected him back with the starters heading into the real practice. Then some of the guys pulled him aside and told him they felt Shedeur had earned a few more reps with the first group, given how the last couple days had gone. Monken didn't overthink it. He flipped the rotation, told everyone it would swing back the other direction the following week, and moved on. He was blunt about it too, saying the speculation around who gets what reps is almost funny to him, because as long as reps keep getting shared, it's still a competition, plain and simple. He compared it to how Cleveland is handling snaps at other spots on the roster and made it clear he'll tell people when there's actually something to announce. Here's why that moment is dangerous for the Browns from a narrative standpoint. Up to this point, Cleveland could wave away a strong second-team practice by pointing at softer matchups or say the surrounding talent made things easier than they'd be with the starters. That excuse disappears the instant Shedeur takes one's reps and still looks decisive. Now he's being measured against the exact competition level Watson is being judged against. There's no separating the conditions anymore. That changes the entire conversation inside the building. And this wasn't just clean completions on easy underneath throws. Shedeur was getting the ball out on rhythm. He was recognizing things before the picture fully developed. He was willing to go into the middle of the field instead of playing it safe to the boundary. He trusted his guys. He played like someone who knew this particular rep couldn't be treated as just another training camp snap. Step back and look at what's actually at stake here. Cleveland has spent this entire camp trying to figure out whether Watson can pull away and make this an easy call. He's got the experience. He's played in big moments. He's earned every chance the staff is giving him. But that only works if he actually creates real separation. And every time it looks like Watson is building that separation, Shedeur finds a way to drag the competition right back into a dead heat. Day 11 is the latest example. Watson has had good stretches of his own, flashes that remind everyone why the front office still believes in this reclamation project. But Shedeur refuses to let those stretches become the whole story. The moment his own opportunity grew, he answered it. That's exactly what you want to see out of a real competition, and it's why the daily quarterback tracker numbers only tell part of the story. The stat line can be close enough that nobody can claim one guy ran away from the other, but coaches aren't just counting completions. They're watching who controls the huddle, who gets a play changed at the line when something looks wrong, who gets rid of the football before pressure shows up, who knows exactly where his receiver is supposed to be even before the route breaks, who stays calm when the defense starts disguising its looks late. Those are the things that decide whether a quarterback survives once the games start mattering, and on day 11, Shedeur gave the staff a lot more of those details to chew on. That puts Monken in an interesting spot. If Shedeur had struggled in that first-team window, Cleveland could have just kept rotating and said he still needed seasoning. Instead, he stepped in and looked like he belonged. And now the question the coaching staff can't dodge is simple. How many more first-team reps does he earn after a showing like that? There's a piece of tape worth pointing to directly, because it captures everything people have questioned about Shedeur's game. Anticipation, timing, trusting what he sees before it fully shows up. There's a throw to Isaiah Bond where Shedeur is already committing to release the football before Bond has finished coming out of his break. That's not a check-down read. That's a quarterback deciding in advance and trusting his guy to be where he's supposed to be. People have gone back and forth all camp about whether he can actually process fast enough at this level, and reps like that won't answer the question in real time. One of the biggest question marks hanging over Shedeur coming into this camp was speed of processing. Can he see the defense, trust it, and let go of the football before the window shuts? Can he stop waiting until a receiver is fully, visibly open and instead throw guys open with anticipation? Those aren't small technical notes. Those are the exact traits that separate a quarterback who produces highlight throws from one who can actually run an NFL offense week to week. And Day 11 gave Cleveland some encouraging signs on that front. There were multiple throws where the ball was already out of his hand before the receiver had finished the break. That tells you he wasn't reacting to what the defense showed him after the fact. He was anticipating where the window was going to open. At this level, those windows close fast, and any quarterback who waits to physically see a guy standing open is already too late. You could see the same kind of confidence showing up before the snap, too. There was a sequence where he read the defensive look, adjusted the play at the line, and got the ball out on time. That kind of rep doesn't trend the way a touchdown does, but inside the building, it's exactly the type of thing coaches study closely because it shifts the conversation. Nobody questions his arm talent anymore. The real question now is whether he can control the operation before the ball is even snapped, and that's where things get complicated for Watson, because experience is supposed to be his advantage. He's seen more disguised coverages, more exotic pressure packages, more high-leverage moments. If Shedeur keeps closing that mental gap while still producing physically, Watson can't lean on being the veteran anymore. He has to go show it on the field every single day. Shedeur doesn't need to be perfect right now, and nobody should be holding him to that bar while he's still learning a new system. What Cleveland needs is growth in the areas that actually matter. Faster decisions, cleaner recognition, more command at the line, more poise when the picture changes late. If those things keep trending up while he's also producing against the ones, the Browns are going to have a genuinely hard time pulling these two quarterbacks apart. There's another layer here too, because you can usually tell when a quarterback doesn't fully trust what he's seeing. The feet slow down. The ball sits in his hand a beat too long. The receiver finishes the route before he ever commits to pulling the trigger, and suddenly the pass rush looks faster than it actually is because every extra half second creates more pressure. When a quarterback trusts the read, everything looks different. The drop is cleaner. The feet are calmer. The ball comes out early, and the whole offense starts moving with rhythm instead of feeling like every play needs to be rescued. Shedeur showed more of that rhythm on Day 11 than he had shown up to that point. None of that means the practice was flawless. Late in the session, things got sloppy. False starts, guys lining up wrong, plays getting blown up before the snap even happened, and Monken did not hide his frustration about it. That matters, because coaches hate wasted reps in a competition this tight. Every single snap is supposed to tell you something about how a quarterback reads a defense, handles pressure, and manages a broken play. When the operation keeps jumping early or misaligning, coaches don't even get a clean look at the guy under center. But here's the important context piece. Those pre-snap issues weren't isolated to one quarterback's unit. Both groups had them. Shedeur had guys jumping around him. Watson had the same thing happen with his group. That distinction matters, because it would be easy for people watching from the outside to see a drive stall and immediately pin it on the quarterback. If a false start or a busted alignment kills the play before it even develops, that's not a processing issue, that's an operational issue, and lumping those two things together muddies the entire evaluation. Realistically, None of this should be shocking given where Cleveland is right now. New system, new combinations up front, multiple quarterbacks rotating through different groups. All of that creates room for mistakes, and Monken knows it. But that patience has a shelf life. That's actually where this competition could get more interesting, because once the offense cleans itself up, the quarterback who can settle everything down becomes more valuable than ever. The guy who gets everybody aligned, identifies pressure, and gets a clean snap-off starts building real trust with the staff. That's command, and command is going to matter more as this competition gets closer to a real decision. Watson deserves real credit in all of this too, because his improved play is part of what's forcing Shedeur to keep raising his level. He's had multiple strong throws down the field, sequences where he trusted a receiver and let it rip vertically instead of just managing checkdowns. When he answers that question well, Shedeur has to answer right back. That push and pull is exactly what makes a quarterback competition real instead of manufactured, and it's sharpening both of these players right now. Neither quarterback is operating in a quiet environment either. Watson carries the weight of everything this organization has invested in him and everything that was expected the moment he arrived in Cleveland. Shedeur is dealing with constant national attention, where every single practice rep somehow becomes a bigger story than it probably should be. But inside the building, none of that noise is what Monken cares about. He's trying to answer one simple question. Which quarterback gives this offense the best chance to function on a weekly basis? And that's a much deeper evaluation than a completion percentage on a tracker graphic. Watson still holds real structural advantages. He should understand how fast an NFL defense can punish a mistake. He should know how to respond when a play collapses. He should have an edge reading pressure and adjusting protection calls on the fly. Those are legitimate, earned advantages from years in the league. But Shedeur is making this competition uncomfortable by learning at a pace that's hard to ignore, and if both guys are completing passes at similar rates, then the evaluation has to dig past the surface numbers. Maybe one completion happens because a receiver was left wide open. Maybe another happens because the quarterback created the opening himself by getting the ball out a half-second early. Maybe a flashy deep ball actually arrives late, and a shorter, less exciting throw is the better piece of quarterback play because the read was immediate and correct. Those are the details that could ultimately decide this job, and separating them requires the kind of tape study that never shows up on a public tracker. Cleveland also has to be careful about how it interprets these reps in context. If Watson keeps getting extended first-team windows while Shedeur gets shorter opportunities, comparing raw production without factoring in who was on the field starts to get misleading. The group around each quarterback matters. Protection matters. Receiver timing matters. Reps don't have to be perfectly equal, but eventually, both guys need enough high-quality snaps to build a fair picture. Right now, that picture is still blurry, and that's exactly why every single practice starts to feel heavier than the last. Monken has already made clear that both quarterbacks are going to get real opportunities in the preseason before Cleveland gets serious about a final call. That tells you practice reps aren't the final exam, they're the setup for it. Every strong throw right now builds trust. Every mistake shapes how coaches divide up those future opportunities. This has stopped being about who had the better morning. It's about who is building momentum at the right moment, heading into the stretch where it actually counts. If Watson had continued to struggle the way some worried he might earlier in camp, Cleveland would have had an easy excuse to shift the spotlight towards Shedeur. Instead, Watson is still making plays, still moving the football down the field, still forcing this staff to evaluate every single rep carefully. That's real competition, and real competition exposes everything. It exposes who handles pressure. It exposes who bounces back after a bad series instead of spiraling. It exposes who adjusts when the defense changes its picture mid-drive. It exposes who keeps the huddle organized when things start to unravel. Those are the exact things Monken is watching right now, and none of it shows up cleanly on a graphic. The tracker can tell you completion percentage. It can tell you touchdowns. It gives fans a surface-level way to follow along. What it can't tell you is which quarterback actually makes this offense easier to operate. Who gives his receivers confidence before the ball is even snapped? Who gets the protection set correctly under pressure? Who gets the ball out on time consistently? Who keeps the huddle calm in the fourth quarter of a tight game? Who takes a bad play, lets it go immediately, and comes back with a better one on the very next snap? That's where this competition eventually gets decided, and right now, Cleveland doesn't have that separation yet. That's why the next round of first-team reps carries so much weight. If Watson gets another extended run, he has to finally create real distance instead of just staying steady. If Shedeur gets another shot with the ones, he has to prove that day 11 wasn't a one-day flash, but a real trend. At some point, Monken can't keep saying both guys are competing and move on to the next question. Eventually, the reps start telling their own story. Eventually, the offense starts leaning toward one direction. Eventually, the locker room starts to feel which quarterback gives them the best chance to win football games, and that instinct in a locker room is usually more accurate than any public tracker could ever be. Watson is still fighting. Shedeur is still answering every single push right back. Monken keeps rotating the reps and refusing to tip his hand publicly, and every time one quarterback looks ready to pull away, the other one responds almost immediately. Shedeur's work with the first team on day 11 matters because he didn't just survive the moment, he thrived in it, showing quicker decisions, real command at the line, and enough sustained production to keep genuine pressure on this coaching staff. Watson had good moments of his own, which means Cleveland is nowhere close to an easy call here. If Shedeur keeps looking this comfortable every time he gets the ones, the Browns are going to have to keep handing him meaningful opportunities whether they plan to or not. And if Watson wants to hold on to the lead role, staying steady isn't going to be enough anymore. He has to actually pull away.